Hello everyone, Seraphin here, welcome back for some more Castlevania, Aria of Sorrow. When I last left you guys, we were still doing more soul hunting, and by the looks of things, we're continuing to be successful in that regard, which I am more than okay with. That being said, I took the time to review my list and kind of put together basically what location each of these souls is going to be found in. You know, I might as well just grab slime while I'm here. The list of stuff to get in this particular region is quite extensive. So this will probably be the single-handed largest section of soul hunting we're doing is in the Underground Reservoir. I was really expecting to get a lot more stuff while I was here the first time. But considering we're less than a minute in and I've already got 2, that's pretty good. That being said, we are going to be spending some time here in the Underground Reservoir at any rate, collecting souls. The list of things that is only found here is extensive, as I just said, so we'll be here for a little while. And the fact that I have to use the Skula Soul to submerge myself in a lot of areas is going to probably prolong things just a little bit, only because I can't use the Gremlin while I have Skula equipped. So things will take a little bit longer. I wonder if I can go up there and grab Arc Demon real quick. Maybe he'll drop. Put Gremlin on too, why not? Nope, I guess not. Worth a shot, right? There is a better place to try to farm him anyway, so... You know what, now that I'm thinking about it, this one probably is better. Because I can just kind of jet right up here real quick. And I don't think his soul is particularly hard to get, as far as the drop rate is concerned. It's certainly not hard to get to, that much is certain. Yeah, we'll just sit here and do this one. At any rate, we've got a few dozen souls left. I think we're about at the 30 mark as far as how many are left. Not many. I probably could just check in the book right now and tell you. That being said, even once the soul hunting is done, by the way, the finale of this is probably going to be at least 2 episodes. Only because the true ending adds some extra content to the end of the game that you otherwise would not get to see if you didn't do the true ending. Those of you who have played this before know what I'm talking about. The rest of you, I guess it'll just have to be a surprise. I promise it'll be an okay surprise, unless you're not into it, but I can't imagine why you wouldn't be. It's more game, right? If you haven't enjoyed me playing this up until this point, then I don't imagine why you'd stick around for that anyway. So, with that being said, we are going to be here for a little bit in the Underground Reservoir at any rate. That includes the cemetery area down in the basement. There's a couple of things I didn't get while I was down there. Nothing drastic though, like I said, and hopefully they won't be quite as tedious as this guy right here is probably going to be for some reason. If he would just be like his siblings, the Flame Demon and the regular Devil, who didn't require a lot of effort to get, that would be ideal. But what the heck do I know? I had some time to think about what I want to address while I'm playing through these games, or this one in particular, and I'm kind of running out of real stuff to say, so I think we'll talk more about Castlevania instead of, you know, boring realistic stuff that I'm sure nobody wants to hear about anyway. So, this was probably, I think I mentioned, this was like my first Castlevania game that I ever played, and some of you are going, wait, really? You never played like a real Castlevania game before this one? And truth be told, no, I did not. I didn't quite know exactly what Castlevania was all about. Obviously, I knew it was about Dracula and, you know, hunting monsters and demons and kind of that thing, but I didn't quite have a grasp on the series as a whole in terms of what it was like and what to expect from it, because I never played any of it growing up. Nobody I knew growing up had any of these games, so it was never something I was directly exposed to, certainly, but I never really had a whole lot of interest in them up until the Game Boy Advance came out, because the Game Boy Advance was kind of like my gaming renaissance, I want to say, because there were so many good games for this console. It's arguably my favorite Nintendo console, and that's pretty evident by the fact that's all you've seen on this channel so far is stuff from that console. But there's so many good games on it, the platform is wonderful, and some of the best titles in almost every franchise are available on it. So, And that's also when I first really discovered emulation. When I was a younger person, probably 13, 14 years old, when I discovered emulation, and I discovered I didn't have a Game Boy Advance and I didn't have the money to buy one, so I would someone tuned me into the idea. I think it was my cousin actually tuned me into the idea of just downloading emulators and playing games that way. That I don't recommend that method. I can't officially condone that method if you don't actually own the games, because it's technically illegal. Emulation itself is not, but downloading ROMs of copyrighted material is definitely illegal if you don't own the physical cartridge or the physical medium that the game is made on. In all the cases of games that you've seen me play on this channel so far, it is an example of I do own the physical cartridges. I own Aria of Sorrow, I own Fire Emblem, obviously, all those ones. I'm not going to play something on here that I don't legitimately own, just for, not that I think I'm going to get in any legal trouble or anything, but just to cover my bases, I guess. And I highly recommend that anybody who's thinking about emulating does the same. I'm sure it's one of those things where it's, oh, who cares, right? But I'm not going to officially condone the act of emulation if it's not something that you legally already own. That being said, when I was younger, I didn't have those concerns. Or if I did have those concerns, I simply didn't care about them as much. And that's how I discovered a lot of these games, was through emulation, because I would never have gotten to play any of these titles when I was that age, because I simply couldn't afford to. And that is something that I have a lot of, or that I lament a lot about in this industry, is the fact that it's very difficult to try, or to explore and try new things in a gaming medium when the developers of said games don't make it easy for you to access them. There was, for a time, that was a lot easier. For example, a lot of games that were on the 360 and whatnot, because that was the first real online generation of consoles. I mean, obviously the Xbox original and the PS2 had online functionality, but it wasn't really the big focus of either of those consoles. I feel like the 360 and the PS3 were the first ones to really emphasize online connectivity and online play. So, with that particular focus also came the idea of digital downloads, because it was more focused on online capabilities, and thus, in addition to digital downloads of games, you had the ability to download demos of games. And whereas on a lot of older consoles, sometimes you'd get like a promotional disc and a copy of a magazine or something that would have some free demo software on it or something. But it was pretty few and far between, and most of the time it was really popular stuff that everybody was going to pick up and buy anyway. But with the advent of something like the 360 and the PS3, you had the ability to try a game before you bought it. And I was always a really big fan of that, because I had very little in the way of disposable income for most of my life, up until my early 20s, really. And even then, it depended on where I was working at the time, but I couldn't afford to buy all the games that I wanted, and I would rent them a lot. That even that is slowly starting to go toward the wayside, and you can't really just walk into a video store any longer. I think Family Video is really the only one that's around anymore anyway. Like, Blockbuster's gone under. All those other, like, Hollywood Video used to be a thing. All those places are gone, and renting is much less of an option as it ever was. And even if the place you want to rent from has that game in stock, they might not have it available because someone might have already checked it out. So the idea of game demos is something that I'm a big proponent of, simply because it allows developers to share their content with other people, or with a lot more people, and at a greater level of accessibility. Anybody who has the console can try the demo. It doesn't cost anything, and most of the time the demo that you're playing is just a little snippet of the whole game itself. And it really doesn't cost the development studio anything to produce either, because all they're doing is taking like a snapshot of the game they've already worked on. I guess sometimes it's not always the case, but most of the time it is. And I feel it's a very inexpensive and a very great way to expose more people to your product. More people who might otherwise not pick it up simply because of the prohibitive cost involved. Because games aren't cheap, everybody. I'm sure you watching this right now are perfectly aware of that. I imagine most people who are watching me play this are gamers themselves. I can't imagine why you wouldn't be. Maybe you're just want to watch this because it's entertaining. I doubt it. But at any rate, this guy just does not want to give up his freaking soul, does he? This is really annoying. At any rate, I don't understand why more people don't make demos. And especially nowadays when everything is digital, everything is online. Like even handheld consoles like the 3DS, they're all connected to the internet, and you can even get demos of 3DS games from Nintendo's shop. So there's, I mean, I guess Nintendo's a really big company and they have the means to put out a lot of demos and things, but they also make a lot of games. And there's a lot of Nintendo games I would like to play that I simply don't have the time or the resources to put my energy into. So being able to try it out and determine which titles are truly worth my time is a big boon, I think, and I really wish more of them did that. Obviously, things that I'm already really interested in, I'm going to pick up anyway. Like, as soon as a new Fire Emblem game drops, I'm going to have that. Generally speaking, every new main series Pokemon game I'll pick up at least one version of, sometimes both, if I'm really, really into it. I own both X and Y version, for example. I own both Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Those are the best ones, in my opinion. Was not really that big of a fan of Sun and Moon, but I picked them up anyway, and I beat them, so... Not both of them, just one. But, you know, very few people have, or if people have a franchise that's like their go-to, it's really only one or two. For me, my go-to franchises that I just have to own is Fire Emblem, maybe Pokemon, maybe Metroid. I love Metroid a lot too, obviously. Castlevania, it's kind of hit or miss for me. There's a lot of really good Castlevanias, but there's also a lot of really bad ones out there, unfortunately. Mostly the three-dimensional. Anything three-dimensional Castlevania, I generally try to shy away from. The first Lords of Shadow was good. I played through that, and I liked it, but it felt really almost kind of God of War / Dark Souls-y to me. Not Dark Souls, that's too much, but it felt like God of War kind of like, because it's like a hack and slash, and quite honestly, you're whipping this chain around in every direction, just like Kratos does in that game, so it's kind of weird. But truly, for me, and I think a lot of the Castlevania fan base will back me up on this, the truly great installments of this franchise are the two-dimensional ones, and including a lot of the older ones. And in fact, I think what is widely regarded by a lot of the Castlevania fan community to be the best one is one of three games, and I have a hard time deciding between the three of them because they're all amazing. But it's either Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation, Rondo of Blood, which was also for the PlayStation, and Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, which was on the NES. And those are, I believe, most people who have played through a lot of these games will decide that one of the three of those is the best one. In my opinion, personally, it's Symphony of the Night. Although Symphony of the Night does get a little tedious to me sometimes, and Symphony of the Night really, when you boil it down, is not a traditional Castlevania game. It's much more of an RPG than a Castlevania game, in my opinion. So if you're looking for the classic Castlevania experience, I think Rondo of Blood or Dracula's Curse are better representations of that. And if I had to pick between those two, I don't know that I could. I'm probably better at Rondo of Blood than I am at Dracula's Curse, only because I'm just awful at the old school 8-bit ones. I've never beaten any of them. Oh my god, finally, that only took 10 minutes. Anyway. Where was I going next? We gotta go down, right? No, that won't work. We gotta go left. So, I mean, if you're looking for a classic example of Castlevania, this one and Symphony of the Night probably are not the best examples of that. They're still great, don't get me wrong. But if you want the unadulterated, true-to-form Castlevania experience, this one and Symphony are not the greatest examples of that. This one's great too, by the way. The sequel to this one, I don't think was regarded quite as highly as... or rather, the sequel to this one was not regarded as highly as this one. This one, I think, is better than its sequel. That being... did I just get one from each of those nightmares? I think I did. We can get Flesh Golem somewhere else. Dawn of Sorrow is the direct sequel to this game, and I don't believe it is as highly regarded as this one. I don't know why that is. I actually haven't played Dawn of Sorrow, and that's going to sound crazy to some of you. I can't find it. Every time I try to get a copy of it in like a local game store, I can't find it there. It's prohibitively expensive online, on like the secondary market, like eBay or something. You're paying upwards of $40-50 for a copy of that, generally speaking. I don't know why that is. Probably because of something I've noticed, and this is because I'm a Fire Emblem fanboy and I know this already, but whenever a franchise gets a very new, popular installment that everybody likes, suddenly all the old ones are impossible to find. Because it's like people are just now discovering this whole world, this whole universe, and they have to have all the other ones that they didn't get to experience, even though they're really late to the party in some regards. And it's a little bit annoying. When I say a little bit, I mean it's incredibly annoying in the case of Fire Emblem, because games that I've had for 15-something years that were sitting in the bargain bin in stores before are now worth, over $100. For example, I actually bought a GameCube when I was 17 for the express purpose of playing Path of Radiance. And I was able to get a GameCube for like $30-40 at the time, because nobody cared about the GameCube anymore. And Path of Radiance, as I said, I would keep finding in bargain bins at GameStop for like $10. So I managed to pick up both of them for nothing. But nowadays, if you wanted to find a copy of Path of Radiance, you're paying at least $100 for it, because that one is one of the best ones in the franchise. And because Awakening and Fates were so popular, suddenly there's this big, massive outcry for demand for more Fire Emblem, which is why Heroes has done so well, and why it's so hard to find those older ones now, because everybody wants them. I got lucky in that I got in on the ground floor and got most of those while they were still dirt cheap. I had to re-buy a couple of them because either I loaned them and they never came back to me, or I just lost them, sadly. But I got lucky. At any rate, we'll talk more about Castlevania and the franchise and how I feel about it, maybe some more about gaming in general in the next episode while we do some more soul hunting. I sadly did not get as much done this episode as I wanted to, obviously, because that freaking Archdemon took way too long. But we got a few other ones out of the way. Once we're done with the Underground Reservoir, we're going to move to the arena, and then finally back to the top floor, and that'll be that. So, that being said, we'll hopefully be able to get done in another week of episodes, and we'll be done. So stay tuned for more of that. Again, like I said, if you're not interested in soul hunting, then feel free to skip those. But until next time, everybody have a good time. I appreciate all of you watching. It really does mean a lot to me. And this has been Seraphin. Stay classy, internets.